and you're listening to KGA Live here in Gualala, California, where we are so dreary and wet this morning. I hope you guys are staying dry and staying warm. This is Sevi Cardosi with you here on the coast this morning. We have a really interesting show coming up. I have my dear friend Drew Beam coming in on Zoom all the way from San Francisco. Many of you know his family here. We have Meredith and Dan Beam. I worked with them on Sparks when we did our storytelling presentations out at Dragon's Breath Theater years ago. And they participate in Dragon's Breath every year. And they're just wonderful people. Their company is Beam Incorporated, which is a strategy and design firm. They do branding. Andrew is their partner and one of the top designers. And Drew, welcome to KGA Live.
Hi, thank you, Sevi. Thank you for having me. It's a thrill and an honor to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this conversation. We are very like-minded, both of us designers, and then you get more into the tech and what's going on out in the world. And just to fill everybody in, our conversation today will be about Drew and what he does because he's really interesting. I met him in San Francisco a couple weeks ago and he was telling me some of his story. My mind was just blown. I was like, wow, what a life. And we started talking about AI and what he learned at Dreamforce this last year. When was that? A couple months ago, right?
That was a couple months ago. Yeah.
Time flies, man.
Damn.
Yeah,
Well,
so we'll talk about AI, the pros and cons, and all that good stuff right here. But first, let's get right into you, Drew. Tell us
all
a little
right.
bit about, you're working in the design, but you had a history of design that's morphed and changed over the years. Share a
It
little bit
really
of
has.
your story, yeah, and what
Okay,
makes
sure.
you somebody that can talk on AI because you get in there.
Yeah, I think well, yeah, we'll get into AI. I think it's a hot subject. It's hard to ignore.
In your
We're
face
we're
every
finding
day.
it in the media as playing, in this, kind of two camps. Is it the most frightening thing or is it the most wonderful, useful thing? But my background, I'll just give a little story here is I since the day I was born, I just basically I think I was born with a crayon in my hand and I just started drawing and I loved art and it was truly my preferred voice growing up. And I went to art school, I went to Rhode Island School of Design and I
Fellow
studied.
Rhode Islander for a while.
Yeah, we share that love of Providence. And when I was at RISD, I studied everything from Baroque painting to medical illustration, and I just really absorbed myself. I just really tried to soak up as much different types of skill sets, modalities, and any way I could just enhance my self-expression and storytelling through the visual medium. Um, Fast forward, I was a school teacher. I worked in advertising, and I found myself in the world of innovation, where I was working with the top innovation firms at the time in New York and developing everything from designing sneakers to jewelry for Gucci and all sorts of wonderful things. It was a riot. I think the one thing that I kind of had is I had a kind of a wake up call one night and I was thinking, geez, what am I putting out in the world? I really want to be very intentional about my input.
Mm,
As exciting and sparkly as a new innovation or a new thing or a new message, I really wanted to be very intentional about that. And I think that that's kind of a good segue into talking about AI,
mm,
because what we're how AI is actually trained is based on the input we put in. It's the theory of relativity. Input matches output. And so I think, to talk about some of the fears and talk about some of the hopes with AI,
mm.
what we're really talking about is human intention as well. So
And
that's
you
kind of a little bit of a shtick.
And
But
yeah, well, and what was interesting is not only did you design physical and beautiful things, but you were in tech as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ignore that. I think it's kind of the story of art throughout history is technology has always played an integral role in terms of how can we better express ourselves, how can we create new things in the world and in shape reality and shape the future. I think coming back to when I was in innovation, I think one of the things that I had as a mantra was, does it open new thinking? Does it open new behaviors? And ultimately, does it, open a new reality?
And
And
the better society, that was
yeah,
part of the conversation I loved with you was you telling me about when you went to Italy and had to put the hours in drawing and really absorbing the skill. And I thought of that and I was like, wow, once we had the graphic programs and this, it kind of you didn't have to do that so much. So are we
hmm.
as beings going to continue to evolve at the best rate we can, or are we going to be reliant and kind of lose that skill and that drive?
I mean, that is the I think the one of the difficult things that we're facing right now with AI in particular, because yes, when I was in Italy, I studied Caravaggio, the Baroque painter, and the way I had to study Caravaggio was to um, replicate his process in detail, and it was how do I put it? It was very grueling. It was very tough. I wanted to pull my hair out. The youth in me, the kind of angst rebel in me is like, why am I doing this? Like I have something to say. Why am I going through this process? Why did I sign myself up for this like very, very grueling process? But I learned so much in that. And we had such a long history throughout humanity where we had apprenticeships and you went through the difficult process of studying under somebody and learning that craft and that skill set. And I think that one of the things is different there's different ways of learning, right? We can learn through kinetic, we can learn through play, we can learn through socialization. It's not just, oh, if I read this or if I study this manual, I will garnish some sort of
Right.
wisdom. And so the process of doing that is, to put it simply, is it's the hard things that really allow us to step into our greater self. And I think about triumph, and triumph is one of my favorite experiences in the human experience. There's nothing like it. You have to well, triumph requires confronting struggle and persevering, and it allows you to develop a new sense of self, a new
Right.
perspective, and a new way of being. And I can't think of personally anything that just gives you that high, like the sense of triumph.
But if you
And
don't have that struggle, that swing of that pendulum, you don't get that euphoric, triumphant feeling. You need that balance.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's one of the things that is in question right now with AI. It's kind of been one of the things in question of innovation in general. I
Yeah.
think a lot of innovation has been kind of categorized as, are we generating things and creating things to make life easier and faster? But is that really what we need?
Bravo.
Um,
I thought
and
of music this morning driving in when I was thinking about this topic and how, generations ago, my grand would tell me stories and they all had musical instruments in their homes and
mhm.
everybody would play together. And you learned, that sense of connecting and timing. And there's an art to it where once the records and then the DVDs and all the music was just giving to you, you didn't have to create it yourself anymore. And did that increase the family life quality or the musical quality, or did it take away from us as a society and a family?
Oh, I would say, being a
All
musician
right.
myself, it's hard for me not to be a little biased, but I
Right.
think that the thing I love about music is, especially when you're playing with others, is that there's almost a sixth sense. There's a sixth identity or an extra identity that's generated in the space
Right.
where we are kind of tapping into this kind of consciousness, and we can kind of like, I can kind of tell what you're going to do next on the bass, and I can riff on that. And improvisation is such a such a powerful um, experience that allows us to try new things and to create new things. And I do worry about that, I guess. When it comes to AI, is the lack of play and improvisation, and yeah, it's 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 there's concerns, and there's also really wonderful things that AI is capable of, I think. But you know, you look at like some of like the great heroes throughout all time, like the people we revere, right? Like Leonardo da Vinci, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Um, I just read an article about Ridley Scott, and he's directing the new another gladiator, right? And he's 86 years old, and he's making two movies a year. And these people live long lives. And they're doing what they love, but they also are signing up for that difficulty. And with AI, when we can automate things and make things so easily, readily available, what are we missing out on?
Right. As a
You know?
creator, yeah, I agree completely. I know
Yeah.
one time I accidentally hit AI improvement instead of spell check on one of my website little paragraphs. And I just thought it spell checked it. And my friend's like, "Did you write that?" I was like, "Yeah." And I went back and read it. I was like, "Oh no, I didn't write that." It changed all my
Yeah.
words. And where it sounded somewhat fancier and fluffier, it wasn't her. And I was like, "Ooh,
Mhm.
that's not."
Yeah.
How does that happen? And so you got to be really careful when you select AI on any program because it just whips in and takes over. And
Yeah, it's like microwaving a burrito, right? You can get some sort of sense of fuel and progress, but is it actually satisfying the human experience? Is it really really speaking on your behalf? And it's spookily, it's learning really profoundly. The quality and the nature of the AI output is quite staggering now. I mean, we used to just even a year or two ago, we had all sorts of hallucinations in our AI, right? You would see like if you're going to do an image generator, you would get like seven fingers on one hand, or it would sound so much like a robot. You'd be like, oh my gosh, this is not coming from a human, and I can really detect that. But the sophistication has really dramatically increased recently. And I think the question is that where is our sense of pride when utilizing this tool?
right.
Where is our sense of agency? And that is something that can be a beautiful thing, if we enact our agency and say, okay, AI just helped me with something, but I want to feel proud about this output. What is my fingerprint? What is my stamp on this?
Yeah. And you have to stretch your imagination and your creativity to grow. So if
Hmm.
you're relying on something else to do it for you, it's like calculators. Remember back when we were in school, calculators were the big technology. And if, you used your calculator to do your times tables instead of going through the actual lessons of the times tables, you missed out. Then you just can't count
Hmm.
ahead when you need to on the fly. You got to
Yeah.
bust out your phone, you know?
Yeah, and you're activating different portions of your brain when you're learning in different ways like that. And Yeah, I think the one of the things too is it's kind of cliche, but every tool can also be a weapon.
Mm,
And we're fascinated with countless stories of innovation with dire consequence.
right.
I
And
mean, pick a sci-fi movie out there that doesn't paint a future where our innovations get out of hand
yeah,
and all of a sudden we're behind the eight ball and technology is directing the
yeah.
future.
I thought of that yesterday. I was scrolling and I came across a feed from Dubai, and a Cybertruck pulled up next to a car, and there were two robots in it, and it said, "You're not wearing your seatbelt. Merits are deducted." And then he was charged instantly from his bank account,
Mhm.
and the little Cybertruck took off. And all I could see was iRobot in my mind. If you haven't watched iRobot, go watch it. Because it's really, I mean, it's ridiculous how life mimics what we've been feeding our brains for the last couple decades. Look at where we
Yeah,
reality
it is.
talk show president. And now we have
Well,
robots like running it's
yeah, I mean there's a lot of scary information out there. Goldman Sachs is basically saying that in the next 3 years that two-thirds of the known job force that we're having will be shifted over to AI. And what is the role that we want to play? The doomsday clock. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the doomsday clock created by Oppenheimer after he created the atom bomb, created the doomsday clock and created a whole network of scientists to evaluate and predict where we think we are in terms of our demise based on nuclear war and climate change. And now we're at 90 seconds to midnight. But actually, the interesting thing is that AI is playing a considerable role in bringing that clock towards midnight.
Mhm.
It goes everything from misinformation is a big one. As we all know, we've encountered misinformation in the news around politics, in our Facebook feeds. um,
And then how misinformation's being used as a tool, as a quote all, and then people that are like doctors and professionals are getting called misinformants and banned. So it's being utilized on both sides because we have
mhm.
so much media that can be doctored by AI and we don't even know it. I remember when,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work with AI and I try to utilize it personally as a tool as best I can as a kind of a springboard. Can it provide some information? What is my personal voice on top of that? And how do I, um, add to the experience? But, um, when I look at the AI output, it's kind of spooky how quick I can, for example, in Photoshop or in Canva, I can kind of just set up a design, a poster, right? Or a meme. And then I can go click. I've now replicated that and formatted that for every social media platform out there. And then also using an AI agent to disseminate all that information and constantly massage and adjust it over time. So I'm
yeah,
not having to think and say, oh,
yeah.
I
Or find the
want to
algorithm
enhance this. It's
on
already doing that.
right. And then the algorithms on who to send it to, it can find that really quick and who believes in that. They
Yes.
feed it more. It's unbelievable. I just saw a picture of those, what is it, a bot farm the other day, and I was like, holy cow, that's one. And there were hundreds to thousands of the phones hooked up. And it
Mhm.
just blew my mind. So you don't, it almost gives you a sense of what is real and how do you tune in with your body again to really decipher through all the information. It's fascinating
Yeah, and
times, I
I
think.
think
I'm more interested in the OI, like the organic intelligence. How can we grow that? But first, I think this is on our plate right now, and we
it
need
really is.
all
It really
sides.
is.
Yeah.
One of the slogans from Dreamforce, I went to Salesforce's Dreamforce, and they were very excited to announce their new product line using AI agents to help people with their marketing.
Now, can
And
you tell our listeners about, because that's a big event every year.
yeah, it's
Tell our
huge.
listeners a little bit about that and what you saw there.
It was wild. It was 50,000 people crammed into about two square blocks with keynotes and uh, all sorts of like little concerts. It was kind of like the Lollapalooza for people in tech and marketing. Um, and there was some really exciting stuff, and there was some stuff that personally I was like, oh, this makes me queasy. Being somebody that loves the craft, that likes the struggle. And for example, I saw a keynote where this individual was talking about, oh, I don't even have to hire an editor or a writer or an illustrator to make my blogs anymore. It is so great. And I'm like, oh man, if Goldman Sachs is saying two-thirds of the jobs are going away right now, that takes away from the artists. But one of and there was some really smart stuff, and there is really valuable aspects to AI to identify, uh, any kind of an issue, whether it's scientific, health, understanding some of the details that would be hard for the human eye to catch or to even process. Which could be wildly helpful, particularly in the realm of science, I could see. But one of their slogans, though, was AI is helping humans be more human. And my initial gut reaction was I kind of wanted to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
That's
I was
taking
like,
me a
oh,
little
I don't
far.
like that.
Oh my
But
God.
actually, the funny thing is, when I sat with it, I was like, they're right. It's forcing me to think about my humanity. How can I be more human because of this contrast? And I think that that's maybe one of the beautiful things that maybe AI is confronting us with is what is it to be human? Um, so yeah, the AI is forcing us to really think about what it is to be a human in our physiological needs, our spiritual needs, our social needs. And if it's taking away something like that, how do we reclaim that? How do we have agency around that?
I just saw a great feed the other day. It was really interesting. And it was about a loan company that was looking to do a purchase for land. So this woman owned the land, they had her passport, they had her ID, they had the forms. And so they said she was in a nursing home or something. She could connect via Zoom to create the sale and get paid for her land. Well, they're on the Zoom call and it glitched a little and they're like, something's kind of funny with this woman. So they're like, ma'am, can you raise your hand? Can you do these things? And she couldn't. It was an AI generated vocal and visual replication of this woman. And I
Mhm.
was like, ooh, it's way more advanced than I ever thought. And you saw a
Yeah.
little bit of that at Dreamforce, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, the deep fake, the deep, what people are calling deep fake, where they can really mimic human behavior, human voice, human looks, expressions. The sophistication is there. Is it fully implemented? Definitely not. The sophistication in terms of that is there. And it is spooky, which begs the question is what do I really own in terms of my identity? Do I want to give that away? I'm connected to a whole community in Instagram in particular with other artists and musicians and creators. And we kind of banded together and created ourselves a little coalition where we were going to put out information to people around some of, some of the dangers with AI. I don't know if people remember, but it wasn't that long ago. But a lot of people, particularly the youth, were really fascinated with, oh, let me put my picture into this AI generator, and now I'm a princess. I'm riding a dragon. I have purple hair. I'm skinnier. I'm whatever, right? And
Emo.
um,
Mhm.
my friends and I, we got together on AI, and we would actually create dialogues with all these people that would post these things and say, you have to you understand that by providing your picture, you've given over your identity to the AI engine. They can do whatever they want with your likeness. If you look at the fine print, it's actually like, oh my gosh, I just gave my face away. They
Well, and
can
it's
make
been
any ad out of you.
Yep. And it's been going on for a while. I remember even when you just post videos out there years ago, I remember seeing one of my TV shows on like a Russian site, all in Russian. I was like, wait a minute. I don't know
Mhm.
who these people are. What is the repercussions? Do you have authority over your identity? And if somebody steals your voice or your looks, or do you have any claim to
Well, we don't have that currently, but my hope is that in the near future, we will have basically identity banks. And we will, just like your financial bank, right? It has all your finances. It keeps your social security protected, supposedly, right? And it keeps all your information just yours, and it's held within a bank. And then you're able to disperse funds as you choose, and so on and so forth. I think in the future that we're going to see something somewhat like that. I'm hoping, actually, because I do think that what it is to be human is to also say, this is me, and, and I have agency and ownership over myself, and how important that is. And so we might have some infrastructure developed around being able to have some controls around our identity, who gets to use it, who gets to use our voice. And therefore, we would have probably some policy in place to help protect those,
that?
just like we have policies to protect our financial institutions.
And can you speak a little bit about, because there is a lot of fraud out there right now, using the internet and using different AI engines to get a hold of people. Can you speak to the listeners on some of those and what they can kind of do to protect themselves? Because I know there's even stories of kids calling, "Hey, mom, I need money. I'm in trouble," and it's literally their voice, but
Yeah,
it's
I think I'm
yeah. And
I'm
I
not
want
an expert
a
on
credit card
cybersecurity
and yeah.
on cybersecurity. Um, and I know that there are a lot of security agencies being in the development right now as we speak. But I think the best thing, my biggest advice is to really ask deeply, really question what is coming in front of you. Can you figure out that there are multiple sources that help create some sort of consensus for this piece of information? Um, because yes, we are seeing, uh, these deep fake calls calling people and saying, "Hey, I'm in jail. I need $50,000 bail," and it
Credit card
sounds like my
charge.
son.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very spooky. And it's gotten so clever. And if you look at your phone, the amount of robo spam calls and texts is just out of control. I think we have to really ask, where is the source of this thing, to ourselves, do some research before we just jump on and try to react, because the initial fight or flight kind of reaction is to say, oh my gosh, the IRS is texting me. Well, if you get your information, you'll know that the IRS will never text you, right? If you're getting a phone number from a number that you don't recognize, look up that phone number. I think there's some little things you can do. But there isn't any service out there that I believe right now that is ironclad trustworthy to help protect your identity and these sort of scenarios. I mean, if you remember LifeLock, which was an identity protection program that people bought into to secure your social security and all your passwords and all your bank stuff and all your online purchases. Well, they got hacked and millions of accounts got shared through the dark web, social security numbers. Their entire brand was tarnished by the very thing that they were trying to stop.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole thing about all digital and digital IDs and digital accounts. They want everything to go digital, and it's just not as secure as human face-to-face relationship, able to verify and qualify. And it's really, I mean, I've had to change my bank card 3 times this summer. Like,
Mhm.
got hacked, and it's like that's ridiculous.
It
Every time you
is.
have to change it, you have to change everything that it's connected to and all those line payments. But it's kind of hard. They've forced you into a corner almost where they don't let you pay monthly by check anymore. It's
Mhm.
here's
Yeah,
this
and if you
device, and now you're addicted to it.
yeah, and there's 5 levels of AI, and maybe a lot of people know this, but we're currently in level 2, and I'll just kind of describe these levels. And so with these levels comes with greater opportunity possibly, and also greater consequence. So this deep fake thing that we're talking about, or identity hacking, that's just one sliver of the potential of AI. So level 1 is the kind of what we kind of got exposed to at first was like the chat bots, the kind of conversational language, right? I could type in something and it can kind of spit something out. Level 2 is they actually have the AI has reasoning, human level problem solving. This is where which is where you type into AI and you can start to use specific prompts and it starts to learn your style and it actually can start to replicate and sound like you, look like you, all that sort of thing. Level 3 is, and some people are already participating with this, is agents and systems that take actions. Um, so it's like basically I have a butler now, and I can tell my I want you to do this and this and this and this on my behalf. Go research this. I want you to fill my fridge with the next order of Amazon Fresh, right? Um, Level 4, now there are some people playing with this, which is the innovators AI can aid in invention. We're already seeing this in terms of some of the science and engineering. There is architectural programs and engineering programs that are creating structures that go beyond um, our imagination and are completely viable with buildings that could be shaped like pineapples and weird twisting things that we didn't even think was structurally possible, and what types of materials can do that. And then level 5, which we believe will probably arrive at within 5 years, is AI will be running organizations. AI can do the work of an entire organization. So imagine Apple, the whole company of Apple being run by AI.
And imagine trying to get
Imagine
hold of them when you have a
Greenpeace.
problem.
Right. Well,
Oh,
imagine Greenpeace,
yeah.
right? Something that is trying to, for the sake of humanity and all life on Earth, being completely run by AI. And that is very feasible.
Mm.
Um,
Well,
so,
if you're just joining us, I'm just going to give a quick shout out so people know who they're listening to and what we're talking about today. This is Sevi Cardosi on KGA Live, and I'm joined by Andrew Beam, and we're talking about innovation, AI technology, and its pros and cons. Yeah, it's out
yeah,
now.
it's exciting and it's really sparkly. And there's so much potential. Um, but at the same time, I think we have to continually tap back into what it is to be human. And really ask the question, is this whatever endeavor I'm engaging with AI or in it, creating innovating a product or a new system, is it really creating value and enriching life? I
And you
mean,
know
it's
what
a
I
very simple question.
also always thought was very interesting is when you get more technology and you need less human interaction. Let's say the bridge in San Francisco. You don't
Hmm.
have humans there anymore. You just have a signal that takes your
Hmm.
picture. Price should go down with technology because now you don't have the
You
work.
think,
So you would the structure of it, the price
right?
should come down because you're no longer paying that. And then the people that don't have a job, then there's got to be that want give and take balance. But they
Yeah.
don't. There's manipulation and then the price goes up. And it's like, wait a minute. That, if people are out of jobs and then the prices are going up, that's not going to work out so good for humans.
No, I mean, the statistics are very spooky. The Forbes was saying that CEOs are saying about 50% of their workforce can be replaced right now through AI.
Mm.
And they're talking in the next few years after that, about 5 years or so. I mean, speculate, and everybody has different kind of fractions of how much of job loss is going to happen. But they're predicting, a lot of people are kind of in consensus around this, around 70% of the jobs that we know today that humans are occupying will be replaced by AI. So that begs the question, if that's the case, are we putting any stopgaps? Do we need to put stopgaps? Or what are the new roles that we need to step into and the new capabilities that we need to create and skill sets that AI can't touch currently?
Right.
And there's certain things that, as we know, that AI can't give you the kind of hug that a best friend or a family member can give you. AI can't give you that sense of peace of walking in a forest. Um,
We're working through the reason you came here on this planet. We all
mhm,
have our growth and our evolution. Does that contribute to it or does that hinder it? Because it's through relationship that we work our stuff out and we grow.
mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's
And
interesting.
yeah, creativity and service, I really believe helps us, makes us more alive. I mean, this is why I mentioned like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Leonardo da Vinci and all these people that lived, long, long lives, is to be of service. And to be of service is to be connected to community, to be connected to others in the world. And creativity, you know, um,
So it makes it
allows
so
our
beautiful, I
it
think.
makes it beautiful. It expands our consciousness,
Mhm.
um, and allows us to picture potentials, future potentials, and shape the future in ways that might be more beneficial. Um, so when we want things to be faster and easier, um, what are we really um, what are we really creating in that space, right? We thought that with the invention of the internet that we would be a more connected society. And in some ways we are, but what is the depth and the value of those connections? We're seeing that there's a huge dip in community organizations, clubs,
Well, it's the ability to relate. I remember when I lived in Italy, phones hadn't come out yet. And you always met people and talked. And at night you go out and everybody would dance. And it was so much fun.
Mhm.
And then I went back after the phones and it was so much harder to connect, to
Yeah.
everybody be looking down at their phones. And so you'd look and wait for a reason to talk about something, or you go to the clubs and everybody's looking down at their phones. So it kind
Mhm.
of the fun factor I noticed on a grand scale has shifted. And it,
Hmm.
wait a minute, you guys have no idea. Like, this is not
Mhm.
fun. This is staring at a screen.
Well, if we look at like Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy of values, one of the, as you start to climb up past safety and so on and so forth, is belonging. And that is truly a human trait. And we're seeing a lot of spooky studies showing depression rates based on some of the anti-socialization. They've done studies of psychologically how the effects of just having a phone on the table when you have dinner with a loved one, how that actually interferes with connection.
Right. And they're
And
utilizing these games and these virtual realities to create connection
mhm,
instead of working it out in their circles around them, where there
yeah.
might be that conflict. Like you said, again, there's conflict, but I think they're just like AI, there's a positive side to conflict as well.
There is a positive side. There's a documentary on Netflix about a boy that was had a severe medical condition, and he played Warcraft, the World of Warcraft, and he had all these people that fell in love with him, and he wasn't able to communicate and be a part socially, physically in the world, but how he created a whole sense of community. And so there are those wonderful stories too. But yes, it's at the same time, we have to just keep asking ourselves, what is this creating value for myself? Is this creating value for the people I love? And am I, do I have ownership and agency over that experience?
And for the next few minutes, let's talk a little bit too about sustainability. I think the one thing that shocked me, I was listening to a science program here on KGUA, and they spoke of the amount of energy it takes just for a chat GPT question was
Yeah.
equivalent to a full charge on a Tesla and for cooling a bottle of water. And I was like, whoa, think of
Mhm.
how many people are unconsciously using this and just sucking that energy. So I brought this up to a friend yesterday. He goes, "Oh yeah, Sev." He goes, "It's they're in China alone. They're looking to build 140, I think was the number, nuclear plants." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds good for the earth." Like
Mhm.
really?
Well,
So
yeah, I'm not an expert in terms of the most regenerative or sustainable power sources available to us. In terms of the quality of them. I mean, you can talk about nuclear. Yeah, some argue that it is the one of the cleanest forms until it
it's
gets
not.
until it breaks, right? And then you have Chernobyl. Um,
And
but
Fukushima.
yeah, the amount of power it requires to run these data farms, and they're only owned by a few, honestly. I mean, there's new AI agents and platforms developed every week. I mean, there's like something that's like, will help you make a better PowerPoint, a new AI thing, a new AI that will, make video games for you in 2 seconds or videos or whatever. But really, the ownership comes down to a few some of these basically energy data farms, and like we're looking at like Facebook and Google and some of the kind of the usual suspects of the tech platforms that are really owning these things. But it is that is a big concern is the energy that is required for all these computations
Mhm.
and what sources of energy. Now, maybe if we could really utilize some of uh, the the good qualities of AI, we can really start to figure out ways to use less energy with to get a valuable output. What types of energy creating innovations can be developed that is possible? Because yes, those energy farms they are contributing to our CO2 and our climate change. So
Well, and the other thought I had, and this is going to sound way out there, but is, well, if we had already had free energy on the market, right? Then what if these things do start going on their own? And we've seen it
like the Matrix.
in movies. not just the Matrix, but Eagle Eye. Like we've been, it's almost like spirits come down with all these movies, kind of like flashing lights. Hey, watch out for this. What like it could be a potential, but if
Oh,
they
it's
have
very much a
the
potential.
free energy, well, then what's to shut it off? So
What's to
as
shut it
right
off? Yeah.
now, we can pull the plug, but come down, another 10 years, if we don't find the balance and allow, regulations to be like, okay, well, this is your little box. This is where you go. You work for humanity
Mhm.
before the free energy comes out and hits the market, and it can just be like, oh no, here, we run the show now. I know
Right.
it's
Well, that's
out there in sci-fi, but I remember growing up and this was these cell phones where you could see who you're talking to. That was something otherworldly, we saw in
it
Star Wars,
was.
and we never thought that would be in our time.
No, I mean and the rate in which even people were predicting just a few years ago the developments of AI. Now I mentioned going through the different levels of AI. We're they're constantly ramping up the timetables and saying actually this is going to be sooner. We were predicting like 10 years. Now we're predicting like 3 for some of these advancements. And yeah, and when I mentioned the doomsday clock, one of the things I didn't mention is that one of the factors on the doomsday clock is that AI will develop will be so advanced that it will have sentient um, ability.
Mm.
So therefore, it can make its own judgment calls on what it deems valuable. And will we be a factor in its ability to be valuable? Or what level, right? And so this is where you start to get into the this almost every spooky sci-fi, right? Is like the Matrix. Or if you read the book Dune, which I thought was really fascinating, they don't do it in any of the movies, whether it was the 1984 or the recent 2000s Dune, but in prior to where the story kind of kicks off, they talk about how there was a huge battle between AI and humanity and humanity ultimately won, and its purpose moving forward was not to advance technology, but was to advance human capabilities and the human experience through the
I
spice
think
model.
that was behind most of the series we grew up on. Star Wars, Star Trek, it was out there for our generation. But for
Yeah.
generations that are coming of age now,
Hmm. I think that,
everybody's
yeah.
got superpowers, it's not like real people.
And is the purpose of innovation and this progress is it simply just to overcome the impossible? Is that the guiding post? Because the impossible can lead down a whole pathway, a tree of decisions and possibilities of reality, where it could be good, bad, both, a mixture. But I think, we have to constantly just kind of turn the lens back on ourselves and say, is this gonna expand the human experience? Is this gonna expand the life experience, the natural experience, and create value and enrich life? I keep coming back to that. It's kind of our mantra at our company
Oh.
because it
I
it,
think
it
it's
really,
good to repeat that because that is the question you should ask yourself every time. Like even when
yeah.
you're scrolling through Instagram, or is this making my life better? Some of the recipes are great, but 3 hours of your day is gone in the blink of an eye sometimes, you just kind of get zoned in. And
Mhm.
what have you become? Where those 3 hours, hey, you could have learned a language.
And I hope I'm not the
Yeah.
only one, but critical thinking is fun.
It
It's
is,
enjoyable. You know, it,
and the debates and getting together with community, and they've almost, kind of sifted that out of our current day society where we can get together and be like, hey, you think this, I think this. Then you get together and it's like, oh, well, we
yeah.
both think this. And then boom, something beautiful comes out of the center of it.
And if it wasn't for those communities and clubs that got together, we wouldn't have had the suffragette movement, the civil rights movement. I mean, the way they organized those movements was through small groupings, like, sewing clubs even, and bowling leagues, and they got, like-minded values and a sense of vision together and coalesced all these different groups to actually kind of create the change that they wanted. And so I do think that, as we can feel connected through some of our technology, my hope is that we also, on an interpersonal level, physically in space, interacting and engaging in different perspectives and experiences with other people. There's only so much a screen, I think, can awaken the consciousness.
I agree. And I think too, revisiting that question about your own humanity and community, more so than ever, with the whole last couple weeks in politics, you've seen such a polarization. And I've lived in the South and I've lived here and I've been very close with people on both sides. And I know in their hearts, they all pretty much want the same thing, but there's no more. They've kind of created this system where people lost that lack to come together and discuss and debate and really work things out. It's more,
Yeah, break bread.
yeah, it's more these short attention span throws that are jabs, more like, but no
Mhm.
actual coming together and being like, no, we're human. We're all humans. We all want this, and this. How
Yeah,
make it better? And it's got to be, I think it, like you said, I think most of it starts in community. If, the community will organically grow out into a national and then global thing, but it all starts right here in community.
yeah. I think it kind of comes back to, are we creating the experiences that we most cherish? If you really think about it, like I like to play this test with some people. I would like to say, tell me about a meme you saw 2 weeks ago. Describe the meme, and on Wednesday 2 weeks ago, nobody can do it.
Nope.
But if I say, tell me a recent memory in the past 2 weeks that brought you a sense of joy, or got you to think slightly differently, they can pull it right up.
Right.
And when we're looking back on our life, the things that are probably going to pop up are not going to be our tweets,
Or
our or how efficient our marketing was, or the advancements in technology. They're going to be the moments that we cried with somebody, the moments where we had a sense of triumph and I figured it out, and I'm so proud of myself. So are we creating those kind of experiences? And I think, and the interesting thing, if I was to predict the future, is, for a long time, it used to matter so much about where something was made, right? Made in China, made in the USA, made, oh, proud of you. We're going to start to see, um, I think, the monikers and titles that are saying, human generated versus AI generated, and that's going to matter.
yeah, I agree. And and it all comes down to source too. It's just like with your food. You got to
Mhm.
source your food and you have to be diligent about where you placed your energy. And if AI is this potential where it's, yeah, it's good and it's fun, but is it enriching your life? If not, don't mess with it. It's like drugs. Just don't do
Well, yeah, it's
it.
also, it's like if you were to, like, well, I don't know if I want to, let me backtrack for a second. Input equals output. And right now, AI is learning based on our input, and the quality of our input determines the quality of the output AI will be able to help us with.
Right.
So if we're putting a lot of misinformation, a lot of hate, a lot of fear, AI is going to work with that and say, this is the human experience, this is the human desires. It's not going to be able to decipher, and it's going to create more and more of that, just like the AI generators for art. It takes slices of every little piece of art it can find on the internet, my stuff I've created, something somebody else created, and says, okay, this is basically kind of what I can cobble together based on the input that's provided. So better input, better output.
Yeah. And I think too, that's again where we have to reevaluate ourselves as a human and be like, what's our programming? What are you
Yeah. So,
focusing on every day? Because I
yeah.
constantly, especially during the political season, oh, he's going to do this and climate and this. I was like, well, yeah, don't speak that into existence. People kind of gave their power off, I don't know, to the experts or just forgot who they are. Where what you think and what you speak, think of how many things we've created just from our play and oh, we're going to do this. And then boom, you do this.
Oh, I think about that all the
Focus.
time as an artist.
Energy. Yeah, I always say where your energy go or where your thoughts go, your energy flows. So
Well, yeah, I realize that I wield an incredible sense of power being a creative because I can either delight someone to pieces or I could just ruin their day, depending on the imagery I choose.
right.
Or my writing, and we wield a tremendous amount of power and influence, and this comes back to intentions and our own agency to say, is this is this in service
Yeah.
of expanding the human experience?
That was one of the reasons I remember right out of college, one of my interviews, I had a job offer at CNN. And I asked him right away because it happened to me at my local affiliate where they would take stories and change them around and it was more negative and elicited negative emotions. And I said, "Are you gonna tell these stories for, face value or do you taint them like I call it ambulance chasing?" And he's like,
Mhm.
"Well, Steffi, what do you want?" I was like, "I want to be inspired. I want to go out there and be part of my community and that's what I want to see when I'm watching the news, like what's going on and what can I be part of or make sure I'm not missing out on next year." He goes, "Honey, you're in the wrong industry." Whoa.
No, I
Because
think you're
we
in
all
the
took
right industries.
marketing, like those commercials, how to elicit emotion, where the
Mhm.
jugular is. And
Right, yeah, the like inadequacy marketing, inadequacy messaging, and sensationalism.
fear.
And yeah, it's a very driving force in terms of garnishing attention, and but it's very powerful because it does trigger our reptilian fight or flight. But I have a lot of when I talk to some of my friends and other innovators and brilliant people I like to collect in my life because I just want to surround myself with amazing humans. How many of them follow media feeds that are purely joyful, positive feeds. Whether it's as simple as a dog and a crow become best friends, and
Right.
or innovations that are life-saving that are and regenerative that actually are benefiting the planet. These are harder to find, and it takes a lot of curiosity and creativity to kind of seek this kind of information out. But it is out there.
That's why I stick to food. Food makes me really happy, but that's our diligence. And that's what is
Yeah.
on us as humans to really pay attention to our thoughts, where our focus goes, and what we're giving our energy to. Even if it's just a simple AI chat, well, you're utilizing energy doing that, a lot of
Mhm.
energy and water. So to be conscious of these things and make
Exactly.
decisions based on that consciousness, I think, is really important right now and gets us back to our OI or organic intelligence that yeah, I
I
think
love that. Yes.
super exciting. I'm going to do another show coming up next week on energy. And, just like what you said, what is it that when you get together with your peers, you inspire each other? Well,
Mhm.
6 feet of distance, that's your nervous system. You link in with others. I learned this when I traveled with masters and gurus. I was like, why do you need a teacher? They're like, well, their vibration is that of a master. They've mastered these things. And when you're in their field, it raises your vibration. So there's a science behind it all,
Oh
which is
yeah,
really
there.
cool. So
Yeah, I
I am
mean, I think anybody with even the slightest sensitivity can like walk into a room and be like, "Oh, this feels
Exactly.
Oh, we're off. Or this feels,
Organic intelligence.
yeah,
Yeah.
this feels right. This is I dig the energy I'm feeling, and conditions are so important. And are we setting up the conditions for growth?
Yep, I
You
agree. And
know,
that's a great place to end this conversation. Are we setting up our conditions for growth? Well, Drew, thank you so much for joining
thank
us here
you.
today. You listening to Andrew Beam. And if they want to look into Beam Incorporated, where do they go?
Okay, yeah. Just we'd love for people to come check us out. Yeah, it's www.beaminc, so like laser beam or Jim Beam, right? BEAMINC.com, beaminc.com.
Awesome. And thank
And feel free to email me if you like anything I said or have questions. I'm happy to I would love to actually engage with the audience at large around this subject.
And when you're in town, make sure you come by and visit.
I will. I will for
All
sure. Thank you so much, Sevi.
Thank you. And
Been
thanks
an
to
honor.
everyone for listening here on KGUA. I really appreciate your attention and time. And we're going to take you on over to Native American Calling. Ooh, that was really loud. Sorry about that. Right here. And then when we come back, we'll tell you about all the fun events coming on the next few weeks here in town. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. The Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary in California is the newest sanctuary designated by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It's been a decades-long project by Chumash tribes. The designation includes a co-management agreement among the tribes and federal wildlife officials. We'll talk about that and also hear from an Alaska Native tribal leader about a new co-stewardship agreement along the Yukon River. We're back after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. As Republicans and Democrats battle it